created. My enemies' walls are bound to crumble, and to the floor their spears will fall. I've been made and sealed with love, but time to battle, I'll fight them all. I felt the whips and remember chains, but my soul has been forged by my father's flames. Fight your fears and heal your pain, and victory will be in your name.
I used to be weak, but I'm not weak no more. I found the strength of my ancestors deep down in my African core. I used to be
I am a warrior.
I'm not afraid no more. The Father blessed me with the heart of a lion and a warrior soul. So no weapon that form against I shall not prevail. No man that rise against I, that war they shall never win. 'Cause I will conquer, oh I will conquer. Yes I will conquer, conquer them. Come on let's conquer, oh I will conquer. Rise up and conquer, conquer them.
Tell them no retreat, no surrender. I shall fight till the end of days. I was born as a Makai warrior, and the Almighty God my blade. Fire burn all Satan carrier. Father loose all shackles and chain. This morning first thing as I wake up, King David told Sam to the brain. Don't let your courage go down, keep it up. And if your heart rip up and stitch it up, don't let your faith them fall, pick it up. When my cup was empty, God fill it up. Don't take the devil contract, rip it up. And if your bad mind people to go meet it up, pass me the Congo drum and let me beat it up. God on my side, me no give it
So
up.
no weapon that form against I shall not prevail. And no man that rise against I, that war they shall never win. 'Cause I will conquer, oh I will conquer. Yes I will conquer, conquer them. Come on let's conquer, oh I will conquer. Rise up and conquer, conquer them.
Thank you, Father. I want to say thank you, Lord. You are everything, Father. Thank you.
Father, you alone shall guide me. No man shall lead my path. In the wind I hear your quiet whispers, and you heal my broken heart. Even some of my friends turn enemies, and they pray for right to fail. And remember you gave us your only begotten son, but we gave him the wound of life. Send down your warriors with the hello, be carried down to the end of days. No matter how the devil try trick me, unto you my soul I will give. Father, I know this storm is coming, I can see the high tide rage. Without you there is no other. Could there be that really nice?
No weapon that form against I shall not prevail. And no man that rise against I, that war they shall never win. 'Cause I will conquer, oh I will conquer. Yes I will conquer, conquer them. Come on let's conquer, oh I will conquer. Rise up and conquer, conquer them.
I am a man, I am a champion, I am a warrior. So who are you to tell me that I cannot make? Who are you to tell me that I am not the greatest thing that God ever created?
Good morning, Grenada, Carriacou, and Piedmont. You're listening to Hard Talk Grenada. A special good morning to those of you joining us on 97.5 CitysoundFM, 89.5 CRFM, 92.9 Sister Isle Radio, broadcasting out of Hillsborough, Carriacou, and of course 94.9 WeiVybz Radio out there in Brooklyn, New York. A very special good morning to those of you joining us on the live video, whether it's on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, a very special good morning to you. I think a few WhatsApp feeds went out as well. So to those of you watching us on your phones via WhatsApp, good morning to you too. All right. Today is a very special morning because we're going to have our Honorable Prime Minister in discussion this morning about our economy. Of course, as the parliamentary representative for St. George Northwest, he will also be addressing his constituents on this platform, or at least speaking to them, letting us know what's happening in his constituency as parliamentary representative. I know his plate is rather full just being Prime Minister and then his constituency on top of that. So we know that his plate is rather full, but nonetheless, he will be here with us to discuss what's happening in Grenada, what's happening with our economy, the stimulus package, the collection of revenue, and all of these things. He will be joining us at 11, which is a couple minutes from now, to discuss these measures. Now, we've gotten a lot of feedback, a lot of pushback, a lot of pullback, but nonetheless, I will always continue to say that my duty will always remain to the Grenadian people to ensure that they are provided with information, even if it's through this medium. So many of you may not agree that he should not appear on a political platform. But guess what? The people that he is speaking to are Grenadian nationals too. They deserve, the right to hear from their Prime Minister. Not only their Prime Minister, their parliamentary representative, but not only that, their political leader as well. So for those of you who don't agree, what can I say? Let's agree to disagree on this one, right? So, and people are free and welcome to invite him, just as I did, reach out to the Prime Minister. If you believe that there is a matter that needs to be discussed and it is in the interest of your viewers and your listeners, please feel free to reach out to the gentleman and let him speak to your listenership and your viewership. Let's not make an issue out of everything. So he will be joining us shortly to discuss matters of the economy, matters that he has already discussed on other platforms, but of course we want to highlight it here, and we will give persons an opportunity to pose questions. Now remember, he's calling in on our direct line, so we will be unable to take your calls, but what we do encourage is that you visit our Hard Talk page on the live video and you post your comments there, so I'm able to relay those comments to him. All right, so we encourage people to post your comments. Listen, if you have queries, if you have concerns, go ahead and post them, and I'll be more than happy to relay that information to him. And please, I'm advising you that you please take your time and post your questions, because if it's hard to read, I'm not going to ask it. If it's disrespectful, I'm not going to ask it. I am making the ground rules now so that you know, so that you do not feel that when your question is not asked, it is because we are trying to muzzle anybody. If you ask your question respectively and if your question is coherent, I will be more than happy to ask it for you. All right. So let's keep that in mind. Now, yesterday we would have had Miss Chanel Alexander from the Ministry, sorry, Chanel. From the Ministry of Finance, and she would have given us a lot of information in regards to the stimulus package, who qualifies, the amount of applications that they have received, and they are encouraging, especially bus owners, all right, the owners and bus operators to apply under the income support for support, basically, because they have seen a decline. They're not even seeing the amount of bus owners that they know we have in Grenada. They are not seeing a sufficient amount of applications coming from them. So for those of you who know of bus owners and operators who have not yet applied for income support under the stimulus package, please advise them to either call the help desk, and I'll give you the number here quickly. They can call the help desk at 416-0097, or 440-0515. They can call or they can send a WhatsApp. They are also advised to send an email to covideconomicstimulus@gmail.com so that they can be assisted. If they need an application form, it can be sent to them there as well. But they can also visit the website, which is finance.gd, and fill out an application form as well to ensure that they are they are supported. All right, because we want to make sure that everyone who is eligible to receive gets. And then she also indicated that if you do not have an NIS card, that is not a problem. Still contact the desk. They do have an arrangement with the National Insurance Scheme to have you signed up, to assign you an NIS number so that you can be assisted henceforth. So please, we are appealing to the bus owners, bus drivers, to please contact the Ministry of Finance help desk so that they are able to assist you. In addition to that, the tourist or tourism vendors, a question was posed yesterday for vendors who do vending at schools and so on. And as she mentioned, the package is, for lack of a better words, flexible, right? And they're not going to know absolutely every single person who needs assistance. So you are encouraged, if you are affected financially by the onset of COVID-19, by the lockdown measures and so on, if you are affected, you are encouraged to contact the help desk. Even though they may not be able to directly help you under the stimulus package, she did indicate that they may be able to refer you to someone who can help, right? So please, it is advised, it is encouraged that you contact the stimulus help desk, all right? And that number again, 416-0097. So you can call or you can send a WhatsApp, and 440-0515. You can send an email to covideconomicstimulus@gmail.com, or you can send or fill out an application at finance.gd for that application form. They also made mention that every single person who has applied for assistance under the stimulus package will be contacted. So whether you qualify or you do not qualify, you will be contacted. And if you have not yet been contacted, it simply means that your application is still processing or still under advisement, for lack of a better word. So please hold fast. Remember the employees, our public servants at the Ministry of Finance, they have been taking night and make day to ensure that the financial needs of our people are met. They have been ensuring that seed payments are issued on time. They have been ensuring that the salaries of public servants have been distributed on time. They have been ensuring that applications for stimulus support has been are being processed and persons are receiving payments, because they have already done over 700 payments already, and they have received somewhere in the ballpark of 1,200 applications. All right, so please ensure that if you know you are affected, if you know you are under the tourism sector, if you know that you are an entrepreneur, a taxi driver, a bus owner, if you do your little vending, because we did ask the question for those people who sell juice and samosas and so on, on the side of the road and whatever, if they will be covered. And she did indicate that they can call. So please reach out. Don't just sit there and think that you are not covered or that you are not qualified. Don't let anybody put anything into your head that makes you feel like this stimulus support is only for persons in the tourism sector. Please, if you are affected financially by COVID-19, please contact the Ministry of Finance. You can also visit your district revenue office. They also have application forms available, and they will either help you fill it out. You can take it away, fill it out, and bring it back. And remember, for the bus owners especially, you have to have a valid ID, a valid driver's license, and of course your bus registration. All right, so you want to make sure that you have all of that information, and of course you want to make sure that you have your bank account number, because the monies will be sent directly to your bank for those under income support. For those of you who are under payroll support, where the business places would receive your payments as a result of COVID-19, whether it's an issue where you are not working or an issue where the hotel is not operating because of lack of guests, whatever it may be, as long as you are affected under the payroll support, then the monies would be sent to your employer. So your employer is responsible for distributing those monies to their employees. Government will facilitate 40% of the employee's salary, and the employer will facilitate the rest. All right, so keep that in mind for those of you who are operating under a business under the tourism sector. All right, so whether it's a hotel or you work for a taxi company, then you would want to check with your company, your boss, to find out if payments have been made and how you can collect your payments. So keep that in mind. It's a wonderful day. We have to be thankful for life. We are grateful for life because we have lived to see another day. We are reminding you to please post your comments, post your questions to the Hard Talk Live video feed so that we can see those comments and we can respond to them, and we can refer those comments to the Prime Minister. And I will reiterate, please take your time and type your comments. If it is incoherent, I cannot understand it, I will not read it. If it is disrespectful in any form, I will also not read it. So please take note of that before we even continue. All right. Yesterday I came across, as we await the Prime Minister, yesterday I came across a piece of information on social media. Apparently everything these days is on social media. I came across a piece of information, and it was very disheartening. It's a tough decision, I'm sure, that the business would have had to make. And I am also sure that the patients are equally as distraught as the business to have to receive this information. But of course, I see it as my duty to ensure that I get information for the general public, and of course that it is broken down as much as possible. And to the person that is calling on the line, I am asking please to free up the line. Let me just take this call and inform. Hello, good morning.
Hello, morning.
Hi, good morning.
I just put on the TV and I just see what's going on. Well, I'm a vendor in the vendor's market on Grenada Beach, but my information is already in because they call me for whatever information they need. But I just want to know when they will be start paying.
Okay, so payments have already started. They have already issued payment to over 700 people. What Ms. Andrew would have said yesterday is that if you have not received your payment as yet, it means that your application is still being processed, right? What I will advise you to do, though, is to take these numbers and you can call them, and they will be able to provide you with better information than I can. All right?
So which number is that?
Once you have a pen and paper ready, I'm ready to give you the number.
A landline number or a cell number?
Well, we have both.
Hold on, Mia. Hello?
Yes, hello?
I'm getting a pen and paper. Hurry.
That's what this is about.
Yeah, hello?
Yes, are you ready?
Yeah, so landline first.
440
Uh-huh.
0515.
0515. 4400515. And cell?
The cell phone number is 416
416.
0097.
Okay, thank you. 0097. Thank you very much. Anybody particular I could ask to speak to?
Well, you can ask to speak with Miss Chanel Andrew, but this is a direct line to the stimulus package help desk.
Miss Chanel Andrew?
Yes, but this is a direct line to the stimulus package help desk. So anybody you speak to should be able to either refer you to who can help you or be able to help you themselves.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you very much, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Okay.
All right, and this is really what it's all about, providing information to ensure that the general public is properly informed, you know. I know we make a lot of issues and make a lot of things political, but at the end of the day, politics aside, people are in need, and however the information can reach them, that is what matters most, you know. So I was referring to the dialysis center, IHS. They would have issued a statement to their patients, indicating an issue. All right, indicating an issue, and I want us to keep in mind that the problem that they are experiencing is not a political problem. It is not an issue with government or anything like that. All right, so we have to keep that in mind. We do have a caller on the line. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
And how are you this morning?
I'm good, and I have to quickly take this call because we are closing in time.
Okay, to the Prime Minister.
Yes.
Okay, I was wondering if there anything, I wasn't even so sure when I'm coming up this step if I heard anything about the in the stimulus package, if there's anything for the farmers.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to know if there.
Right, so that was also discussed. That was also discussed, and what I'm going to advise you to do is to call the help desk, because the help desk. There's a help desk. If you call them, they will be able to provide you with much more information than I can.
Well, it's not really me, you know, but I was hearing on a station yesterday evening there about they wondering if there is thing for the farmers because some of the crops spoiling and falling on the ground and all this kind of thing. But I was wondering if the people and them just couldn't sell some of the sour soup and things like that, and because you have days that you could sell.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can't really judge because we don't understand the circumstances in which that would have happened. Maybe it was before they were even given the opportunity to sell their produce, so we can't really make a judgment on that.
Okay.
But what I can say is that there is a lot of support for farmers. Let them call the stimulus package desk to see what is available for them. That is the most that I can advise, and I'll give you the numbers quickly once again.
No, that's all right, because is the opposition leader here say they hope they have something for the farmers, so that's why I'm asking this morning.
Well, I would say this. There has been a lot of talk about farmers, a lot of talk about what is available to farmers.
Yes.
So what I can say, and you see, this is why these programs are important, and this is why, regardless of political affiliation, once information is being provided and that information can be verified, it's important to listen, you know, because if they were listening, then maybe they would have had more information about what is available to the farmers.
Yes.
All right?
That's what I was saying too.
Okay.
So thank you very much, and you take care.
Okay, you as well.
Good program. Okay, bye-bye.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, so guys, if you are listening and you know someone out there with questions about the stimulus package, please alert them that they can, and inform them that they can contact the stimulus package desk and they will be able to help them. I'm going to take this very last call because we have 5 minutes to the Prime Minister. And so please, caller, let's make it quick and to the point. Good morning, caller.
Yes, good morning. This is Miss Cammy here.
Miss Cammy, I ain't hear from you in so long. Good
Well,
morning.
I'm not well at all, but I know the Prime Minister will be on this morning.
Uh-huh.
Will you be taking calls?
No, we can't take calls.
Okay, well, what I want, I know it's quick. I know you'll be on in time. I want you to post that, asking that for me, please, because I don't know how to use, I'm not so good in all the technology, right?
All right, tell me.
I want to find out from him, please, I'm begging, that we as a small business and the bus terminal, and we home a month and a week now, that if we have to be paid, if they're going to waive the rent for us, because I'm very concerned about that. Because a whole month we home and going on a week now, and we're not selling. So I want to know if we will be part of, they're going to try to help us. Please.
I will definitely do that for you, Ms.
Because
Cammy.
I'll be listening. So
Yes.
I'll be listening and asking for me, please.
I will do that for you.
Thank you very much.
All
I
right.
appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, darling. Thank you.
Okay. Guys, we're going to take a very, very short break because we're having just a very small technical issue that we want to resolve with our WhatsApp. We want to make sure that all the available avenues for you guys to ask your questions is up and running. We don't want anyone to be left behind. So please, we're going to fix this issue and then we will be right back with you. We're taking just a very short break.
Hello listeners, this program comes to you compliments the Grenada Solid Waste Management Authority. Before we begin this morning's program, this message. The Grenada Solid Waste Management Authority wishes to notify all persons who would have purchased tender documents for the provision of garbage collection service in the following zones, that's zones 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and street cleaning and collection services in the town of Grenville, that the deadline date for receipt of tenders have been extended from Tuesday, April 21st to Monday, the 11th of May 2020. This extension has become necessary as a result of the closure of some institutions during the limited state of emergency. If you are submitting a bid for services on mainland Grenada, please follow the original protocols for addressing and submitting your sealed bids. In the case of bids for garbage collection service in Carriacou and Petite Martinique, bid documents are to be submitted following the stipulated protocols and delivered to the Ministry of Carriacou and Petite Martinique Affairs before the 3 p.m. deadline on Monday the 11th of May. All are reminded to follow the stipulated guidelines for the submission of tenders, and please ensure to collect a receipt as proof of your submission and keep safely. Tender documents for the submission of bids can still be obtained from the Grenada Solid Waste Management Authority's main office in Frequenté for those interested. Thank you. Now for today's program. With quite a large number of the nation's workforce at home during this period of limited freedom of movement and uncertainty regarding the pandemic COVID-19, we are aware that householders have been using this opportunity to do thorough cleaning in and around their properties. This is indeed commendable, especially as we are approaching the onset of the 2020 rainy season. As we are currently putting all efforts in place to effectively prevent community spread of COVID-19, we would not want to enter the wet season with the typical concerns of mosquito-borne diseases which have taunted us in recent years, especially recalling the outbreak of severe dengue during last year. At the authority, we encourage such cleanup activities and wish to also sound a word of caution as it concerns the manner of disposal. It has been observed that in some instances, everything that is unwanted gets thrown outside garbage receptacles. That includes furniture, appliances, building rubble, barrels, etc. At the onset of the limited state of emergency, we saw instant compliance to the garbage disposal rules. This is indeed a very bad time to let down our guards in every sense of the word. As we seek to ensure there is efficiency in our regular garbage collection service at this time and in the wake of the ongoing fire at our Perseverance facility, we have temporarily suspended our special collections service for white goods and bulky waste, pending the availability of space for disposal. The Grenada Solid Waste Management Authority has made significant progress in that direction and will issue notification of resumption in the service as soon as we are satisfied that our facilities are prepared to accommodate the disposal of such bulky items. In that light, we wish to urge homeowners to please hold on to your appliances, etc. until an announcement is made regarding the resumption of the service. In the interim, you can continue to make your appointments with your collection contractors for the removal of your items, who will get back to you with appointment dates once the authority gives them the all clear to resume receipt of such waste at the landfill. You can also continue to bag smaller items such as cans, disposable containers, bottles, etc., and put them out for the regular service. The placement of large items near bins has been causing quite some disruption to our collection service over the past few weeks, as these items are too large to be placed in the compacted trucks. On arrival at collection points and communal bins, our collection teams are oftentimes bombarded with huge quantities of broken, rusted metal bits, galvanized television sets, wheels and tires, construction and demolition waste, vehicle parts, household furniture and appliances, among other items, all of which should not be placed out for the twice weekly regular collection service.
All right, guys, and we are back up, and it is about that time when we are expecting a call from our Prime Minister. Now, remember, the WhatsApp number is 440-7377, so you can pose your questions there. We also have the live video up and running at HARDTALK Grenada Live on Facebook. Please post your comments there, and we will pose those questions to Prime Minister. Now, remember, the topic for today is the economy, the way forward. How do we move forward? You know, what is the state of our economy as it stands right now? How is our revenue affected, or our collection of revenue affected as a result of not being able to do business as we should. And then tomorrow, I must indicate that we do have a representative from IHS Dialysis Grenada who will be calling in to put some clarity on an issue that was not meant as an attack for government, but was turned into a political feeding frenzy. So they are going to speak to it tomorrow. They are going to let us know what is happening, where their financial constraints are, and what can be done to help. You know, this is an opportunity for the business. They have 19 patients, right? I'm quite sure that there may be some private sector individuals out there who might be able to partner with a patient and sponsor that patient, you know, and try to burden some of the cost that the patient has to incur, because they are being supported by government. They are being supported by the Kidney Foundation, who in turn is being supported by government. But they need further support. All right. And I think that is the basis of this all. So if we can get private individuals to come out and make a pledge. I saw Sandman, and I must commend him. Listen, when Grenadians stand up like that and support each other, I have to commend them. I have to say kudos. Sandman made a post indicating that he is willing to sponsor a treatment for any of the patients. One treatment costs $695, and they are expected to get 2 treatments per week, which is equivalent to about 8 or 9 treatments, depending on the month, per month. All right. Sandman heard the call, and he decided that he is going to make a donation, and he's going to help support at least the payment for one dialysis treatment for a patient. So if we could get more people like that to stand up and say that, you know, we are willing, we are ready, we are able, then, I mean, this is what it is all about, huh? This is what it's all about. We need to support each other. Now, calling in, we have a call coming in, and we know exactly who that is. It is our Honorable Prime Minister. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, good morning. Good morning. Good morning to all your listeners.
Good morning. Our listeners have been patiently awaiting your arrival, and the questions have already started coming in, and the interview has not yet started.
Very, very interested. I'm looking forward to that.
Absolutely. Now, Prime Minister, we thought it necessary here at Hard Talk that we engage you to speak to your constituents, to speak to our listeners as it relates to the economy. We know that we are in what they refer to now as COVIDious times. And
that's a new word in the dictionary.
It is a new word. And we know that it is putting some constraints on our economy. A lot of people are asking questions as it relates to the stimulus package. People want to know, where do we go from here? So, of course, I want to add a little structure to our interview so we're not all over the place. And I want us to begin with the stimulus package, because that is one of the most asked questions that we have out there. Yesterday, we had Ms. Chanel Andrews from the Ministry of Finance, and she gave us a lot of information, a lot of details. So we are thankful for that. But we know that the government is doing a lot as it relates to the stimulus package. All right? We understand that you guys are aiming to meet the needs of people who are affected by the COVID-19. Now, can you explain to us, we know that you're not going to be able to meet the needs of everyone, but what more is the government able to do, and what more is the government willing to do to meet the needs of those most affected?
Well, we, of course, I'm going to say a pleasant good morning to your listeners and to the length and breadth of this country, and to those who are listening in the diaspora abroad and the Grenadian community abroad, and listeners in general. Basically, I think we have, my national address after at the height of the COVID-19 issue, I did indicate the intention of the government was to try to ease the pain of those who are marginalized and dealt unfairly and are very vulnerable in this period. We did indicate the government resources are limited, and that we should not be expected to be able to provide help to everybody out there. Who can help themselves should help themselves. Even in the question of businesses, we did indicate those who are in a position to take care of the workers should do so. But we are certainly recognizing the absolute need and the effect on businesses in general and people in general, and that's why we decided that we must make a sacrifice. Well, the only fundamental reason we are able to do this is because this country's in the last 6-7 years were put in a very healthy, generally healthy fiscal situation, managing ourselves appropriately, spending within our limits as opposed to what was historically done in this country, that we, through the structural adjustment program, we limited our expenditure and tied it to revenue and the GDP of the country. So we were able to have some savings that we, in times of crisis, which is what I said about contingency. And because we have managed ourselves, our friends regionally and internationally, the financial institutions who normally able to give you help, usually expect you to manage yourselves and operate efficiently to be able to get support. And because of this, because of the savings and the responsible way we've managed our economy, and of course, because of what we have done and the image we have created, we are able to get some support from the international community. Not every country in the Caribbean region has been able to get the level of support that we have been able to attract to help in dealing with the problems. So I laid the foundation for how we are proceeding. So the COVID Secretariat established by the government as an element of the Ministry of Finance, headed by Mrs. Asha Abraham. They have been working night and day, and I cannot praise them enough. While many of us have had to be locked up in our houses, avoiding the outside, they have been out there and working sometimes at home and many a times working in the Ministry of Finance within the protocol we established, getting data from all businesses that qualify, particularly in the tourism sector, and all the busmen and the vendors, the market vendors, and all available personnel that qualify. They've been doing enormous amount of work, and I'm sure Michelle Andrews yesterday would have certainly give you a mouthful as to what has been done.
She did.
But the thing I need to make the point that we are prepared, even what was been done so far. So a lot of people have been paid already. I cannot and will not assume that everyone that should get help would have got it already. So if any category of workers who fall in the category that we expected to help and they did not get support, they have a responsibility and a right to make that claim to the Ministry of Finance, COVID Secretariat. I'm sure Michelle would have given the telephone numbers and so on. And if they didn't, then you could get it and make sure people have it available so they can call and make their complaints appropriately. So we expect that some people may have been left out that should qualify. So please, people must not take it that if they did not get immediately that in fact that we have left them out. Mm-hmm. So we look at every simple complaint that is made, and if the committee has any issue of indecision as to whether a group or area or person qualify for help, then they would pass it, that complaint. If they have a concern, the legitimacy of the complaint, they would pass it to the political, the cabinet, of course, who will make the final decision. And as Minister of Finance, I have a responsibility to give advice on certain situations like this. Mm-hmm. So we are prepared to help. I also want to comment on the fact that a number of persons felt during this period that they have had difficulties in many ways with their businesses on the economic way of life, whether it's a farmer, the fisherman, the business, the retail sector, the hoteliers. And we are aware that people have been inconvenienced. Don't forget, we must never forget that no one was ever prepared for this. And you look at what's happening internationally, and you see big countries with enormous resources and looking at fish out of water. So we were not prepared for this at all. And therefore, there is a balance here in examining what we do and some of the constraints and the emergency situation we have applied. We have balancing the question of protection of the health of the country with that of the economic state of people, because people need to have a livelihood to be able to take care of the family. At the same time, if you have material things and livelihood and you do not have health, then you're not going to be able to enjoy what you have. So health clearly has to be number one priority, together with, of course, falling after that economic priority that we have to establish. So that balancing act has to be done, and that we've certainly have some tough calls we have had to make with the COVID Secretariat has been able to examine and recommend to the Cabinet, because there's a subcommittee of Cabinet and they recommend to the Cabinet, but the final authority in any decision that is made is the Cabinet. As the law and all the information that we put out so far that has been gazetted, the regulations state that whatever is done, the commissioner, for example, in implementing whatever he's doing, he takes advice from the cabinet of the country. So we will not attempt to pass the buck to anyone. If any mistakes are made, we accept responsibility as a responsible cabinet, and we are prepared to examine any area of weakness, concerns people have that we could address, we will. But there's sometimes some tough calls have to be made, and I don't expect everybody will be happy with me or with the government at this particular time. If everybody is happy with me or the government at this time for the actions we have taken, and then we'll be living in an unreal world, and I'll be very surprised. But there's some tough calls. that we have to make, and all of us have to make sacrifices at this time. This is not normal time. I just want to advance that because I know there's some serious concerns out there, and we certainly have heard the people, and we adjust accordingly, but in some cases we just have to stay the course because protecting all the citizens of the country must be number one priority.
Absolutely. Now, I know that in this time, it is important for people to have at least a glimmer of hope. And maybe this has been answered indirectly, but I'm going to pose it again so it can be directly answered because it's a question that's being asked. Now, of course, claims have been made that the men, they call them hustlers, so they would either wash a bus or wash a vehicle or clean somebody's yard or so on to make a little what we refer to as pankwai, all right, to take care of their families. And they, of course, have been deeply affected by the virus. Are plans being made to accommodate them financially under the stimulus package?
Well, we had not looked at that category specifically, but and as we move ahead, one would certainly look at areas that have additional areas that we can, because we know almost everyone one way or the other, and of course the poor one is the more vulnerable one will be in a time like this. So clearly all these various groups of persons clearly we have to look at, but the question is the availability of resources to be able to meet those demands. So we are open towards suggestions, but it would be unfair to make a decision one way or the other, a specific case at this point in time. But we certainly, I'm very understanding, and I think the cabinet members in general, all of them, feel very strongly about the pain that is taking place out there. We all feel it ourselves for the young men and women out there and all the various sectors of workers that have not got anything from the stimulus, but who are also very much hurting at this particular time. So we will be examining all areas.
One of the most important questions, I think, at this point would be the revenue. But before we go into revenue collection, I want to ask a question from Ms. Cami. She's going to make sure I ask it. The bus terminus, the small businesses on the bus terminus. She's asking if consideration is being given to the waiver of their rent payments during this time since they have not been able to operate.
Well, this is a decision, of course, for the people who govern and run the port, the bus terminal, and the Port Authority has a responsibility then, and that is something certainly that would be looked at. You haven't brought it up, and I think it had been brought up before. That's something we should look at because clearly, if a man isn't making any money, I don't know how you ask him to pay for service. In fact, is a lot of people who are renting buildings to live in, people of apartments that they're renting and living in homes and paying rents on a monthly basis. We asking owners and landlords to be a little lenient. That is not to mean that one should not pay. But if one finds himself in difficulty in this period, one is asking the landlord to at least be understanding in this very crucial time. But at the same time, we don't want people taking advantage of the benevolence of landlords to refuse to pay if they can meet their fundamental responsibility to their commitments.
All right, and that is definitely understandable. So it calls for discretion.
Yes.
And it calls for everybody to take everyone's situation into consideration. Yesterday, I would have read a quote from someone who said that we are all riding the same storm, but we are not all on the same boat. Some of us are able to deal with the situation better than others. So discretion must be used in this time. Mm-hmm. As it relates to revenue correction, now, there are a lot of people who believe that Grenada is going to bounce back, right? But as it stands right now, how has our revenue collection been impacted, and what does that mean for the Grenadian economy?
Well, give you an example of just an idea of what is taking place as far as revenue. And for the month of April, for example, we are expected to raise over $30-something million in both inland revenue and customs individually, and so on. Customs is fall about $12 million short. Inland revenue is over $10 million short. So you can see the impact in just these two areas of revenue. We're not talking about some other areas, over $20-odd million. Short in resources, and the government still has every single public servant and all its commitment to meet for those months in question. So we have taken a tremendous hit in terms of revenue is concerned. As I said before, the only reason we are able to meet our commitment to workers at this point in time, and at the same time to be able to help the marginalized and the vulnerable in the society at this time, is because of in managed our economy well, and the savings that we've had, and of course the support that we are getting from regional and regional international financial institutions, for having managed ourselves, and of course having this present situation facing us. So this is the fundamental reason we are able to do what we are doing. So we have been getting some support, and I don't know if you want me to just list some of them.
Yes, please. That would be great.
Well, for example, we have been able to we have the rapid credit facility from the IMF, which certain conditions had to be met, and some countries in the region are not able to meet that. Therefore, some have not got that, but we are able to get the $22.4 million from the IMF for the rapid credit facility, and this is a 10-year loan, 10-year repayment period, 5 years grace, and a 0% interest rate. So you don't find anybody lending you any money at 0%. So for you to be able to achieve this, it means that you have to be put yourself in a very positive position for people to consider helping you. So that's $22.4 million. We also expect now that money has already been received. That $22.4 million have been received already. The CAT DDO, that is the facilities from the World Bank that we in case of or emergency, because we have signed on into that agreement, and therefore we can now get resources because of the present situation for disaster and emergency situation, and since we've declared a state of emergency. And that is $20 million is available. We haven't received that yet, but this is expected to come, and we can draw down as we wish to have. And that is a $20 million and a 40-year loan, and that's almost a grant, you can say. And it's 10 years. You don't have to pay anything in 10 years for 10 years, and then in the rest of 30 years you have to then pay that over. And the interest rate is just less than 1%, 0.75%. That's another possibility. We've also applied for, and it looks the CDB seem to have agreed, and expect to get $5.9 million from the CDB. This is a 1% interest loan from the CDB. But that money goes a lot to do with some of the payments. We have had to meet payments, so loans that we've taken from CDB. So they've given us less money at a much shorter, smaller interest rate, and extend the period of payment over a longer period to meet that. So that's not money we can use just like that. We can use it if we want to, but we have to meet our commitment afterwards. And of course, we expect $2.5 million from through fast track COVID facility through the World Bank. Again, either terms 40 years at 0.75% with 10-year grace. That's also. And we've got some small grant support from the European Union. We have had $500,000 EC from the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. As you know, I'm chairman of the Monetary Council at this time. Mm-hmm. UNDP has provided some support, and a number of countries and governments and agencies are now offering specific help to the Ministry of Social Services and the Ministry of Health and so on. And so we have been able to get a number of serious support because of, as I mentioned, the way we have managed ourselves. And we are now applying to the international community for the deferment of debt payments. We expect it to be able to pay over nearly $60 million between now and the end of the year. So we're asking in the period of COVID that these payments not be removed completely, because we know that these are commercial, some cases commercial debts, and that people have to be repaid. So what we're asking for is a deferment. So for the rest of the year, we won't be expected to meet those payments, so we can use a lot of those monies to help people instead of having to pay those resources at this time and to start paying again next year. So these are some of the things, and as I said before, we're only able to do this because our revenue have dropped considerably because of the serious way in which we have managed the country and because of the positive image of Grenada that's been held regionally and internationally at this time.
All right. Now, I want to move on to farmers, because an hour seems like a long time, but when you're in good conversation, it flies by quickly. So I want to make sure that I address all of the pertinent areas and, of course, try to get some comments off of our live feed.
Yes.
The agriculture sector. Now, yes. This government has spent, from what I understand, the most money in any of the governments that have passed through in recent times on agriculture. However, farmers still complain that the assistance is not reaching them. What more do you think that the government can do to assist these farmers to ensure increased productivity in this time?
Well, I suppose in a number of initiatives that the government has, for example, the farm labor support, the subsidizing of fertilizer scheme, a lot of the extension services, the available of planting materials. Clearly, there are weaknesses in the system, as we know, because some of the resources that we have put aside for farmers sometimes doesn't reach the farmers that really deserve it in many cases, because the implementation process, and you see the complaint not just in Grenada, you see that complaint being in the United States, in Canada, all the different countries. The government has taken the decision to provide support, particularly for the most vulnerable and the smaller active businesses in this country. Many of them are complaining that they have not been able to access these resources. So the question of implementation has always been a fundamental problem, and we rely heavily on our public service and, of course, our people in general to be able to do what is necessary to get those support. So that is something we have to work on. But we certainly have done initiatives that have been taken already. We have met with the GCNA and the Cocoa Association, and we agree that we will, the question of being able to provide support, and the terms and conditions have to be decided so that the associations can be able to buy the cocoa and nutmegs, so the farmers can have a some income at this particular time. So the plan of action is being prepared, and the financial state of the organizations must be brought before us, because just like we're supporting many of the workers in the hotel and other businesses, we have said over and over, we're not we're not subsidizing management and owners of those facilities. The workers are we going to be helping at this particular time. So the support we're going would be for the ordinary workers, the workers in those associations, and of course, to some extent, supporting the farmers in the buying of the nutmegs and cocoa. This particular, at least in the end, you would expect that government would to some extent have to subsidize some of those. The question of how much of that subsidy for the farmers, that has to be decided after the presentation of the plan of action and the way forward, because we have to give account for spending the taxpayers' resources. So these are all things that we are looking at. For the case of the poultry industry, we've been encouraging our farmers to be able to invest heavily in that area, because we know we're spending a lot of foreign exchange and in those areas, and we felt we're in a position to be able to create jobs and of course encourage people to eat more local stuff. And therefore, when we had the cry from that we had the problems with Carriacou and the need for feed to save a lot of the birds that are being produced at this particular time, we moved immediately, aggressively, and provided to get feed from Trinidad, and of course flour from Barbados being worked on, so that while Carriacou is not able to open because of the health problems at this particular time, we hope that will be able to be dealt with as the testing for those workers continue, and hopefully that should be cleared up soon. We have been able to get the poultry, so feed came into the country on Saturday and was cleared, and we gave the duty concessions, generally speaking, for the farmers, for the poultry producers to be able to get that, and then they were complaining that the problem of the feed landing in St. George's and they having to find transport to get it to Grenville and other places. So we have now allowed a boat to land feed this week from Trinidad into St. Andrews, and special arrangement has already been put in place by Customs and, of course, the Port Authority to be able to allow that port to land in St. Andrews, so the farmers in St. Andrews and close by will be able to get the feed to take care of their stocks in a much cheaper way than they would have if it landed in St. George's Port. So there are a number of things that we are doing, and of course we did say the farm labor support, helping the farmers in general, will be another approach. We hope to increase the original budget to be able to provide more support, because I think one thing that this COVID-19 has shown us, and a positive thing coming from it, is the amount of little stalls on agricultural products I see that has evolved all around the country. Almost every little village and stop you pass, you see someone with a container of agricultural stuff, vegetables, and which is encouraging us to eat more healthily. And I think that's another positive aspect of this. So if we expect that to continue, and we expect that people would be able to buy and eat more locally stuff and locally produced fruits and vegetables, then we have to help the farmers to produce more and more. And therefore, we have to invest more and more in the agricultural sector. Just like we do in the fishing sector, to help the fishermen to be able to continue to do their catch and be able to do their livelihood and produce the kind of exports of fish that we are accustomed to doing. These are all the things that we are working on. There's so much to be done. We don't know, as much as we're doing, we know there's still a lot more to be done.
Absolutely. Now, I do have a question here, and that would take us into, well, it would still be in revenue. We know that St. George's University accounts for 25% of our GDP. With the impact of them leaving the island, there are a few locals who suffer the loss of revenue because they're no longer receiving rent from these individuals. Now, there was a statement given by the St. George University that they are looking at extending classes until the 1st of August. But are we seeing any possibility, and that would also lead us into another question about the reopening of our borders, because that is a question that a lot of people have.
Yes.
Do we see any arrangement being made for their return? Do we see any, or are any discussions taking place as it relates to that? Because that's a big chunk of our GDP there.
Yes, we are in constant touch with the St. George's University. They have, of course, assured us and committed themselves to reestablish the campus activities as soon as possible. They've given a date, but they are also prepared to work even faster in coming back, even earlier, if all the protocols can be put in place and all the necessary arrangements. Because don't forget, we yearn for the business of the school getting back on stream because of the economic situation, as I mentioned at the beginning of this interview. Health of the nation is number one priority. So the students that have left, and that you're talking thousands of students, if they're coming in, they would have to be checked appropriately. We have to make sure they're COVID-free, and therefore tests have to be done, and isolation has to be made available when they reach here. They would not be able to just walk out into the streets of the country. And for a certain period, like we do with anyone coming from an affected country right now, we expect them to be quarantined for a few weeks before they can mix with the public in a general sense. So a lot of steps have to be taken to protect the country. So we need them to come back. The school is committed to do so, but both the school authorities and the government must work together and agree that we are working together to ensure that when they return, and as quickly as possible as we both want, that we won't have any serious health problems in this country.
Okay, and that brings us to the question of our there are some Grenadian nationals on cruise ships that are scheduled to return in different phases based on what the minister would have announced. And I just want to let the listeners know that even though our Prime Minister is here, some of the questions that you are posing are more suited for the minister in relation to that sector. So
yeah, I just want to make this point. The Minister of Tourism and the Minister of Health clearly have been addressing these issues. Discussions have been held at the cabinet level. Yesterday, for example, we had a heads of government meeting of the Carriacou community, and many of the leaders brought that issue of the cruise ship, our citizens working cruise ship, and the cruise ship's intentions to repatriate them back to the individual countries were brought up. But of course there are challenges there, just like the School of Medicine that I mentioned before. Steps have to be taken to ensure, even whether it's our citizens or students coming back into the country, we can't allow steps must be taken to ensure that we do not infect people in this country. So therefore, people must verify that they are COVID-free, and the ship can't just tell us they are COVID-free and they were in quarantine. We have to verify this. So discussions are ongoing to ensure that our citizens, we cannot stop them from coming back, and we have to ensure that they return to their country, but at the same time, they both return on the conditions that protect themselves and, of course, their family and the country as a whole.
I have a question from the live that says,
yes.
What is the OECS Central Bank doing about rates to reduce the cost of doing business in the sub-region?
Well, don't forget, they have already announced a reduction in the rates from 6% to 2% for loans to individuals, just for COVID period. Either way, the bank has to operate as an institution of profit. They can't. That's how banks operate. They don't operate just as to provide resources to anybody. Just they have to make a profit, and they have administrative costs that they must have some room to be able to recover and to make profit also. So they have in fact reduced their loans to governments and to private sector institutions from 6% to 2%. And I announced that as I'm chairman of the Monetary Council, and I did announce that about a month and a half ago that the ECCB has already moved to ease the pain of lending in the individual country. So this government can now borrow money from the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, and they put a quota, I think right now for both private sector and governments, about $60 million. We can borrow at 2% from the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. So there are a number of facilities. As I said, Grenada is fortunate that it has that credibility and of course international and regional respect that is receiving the level of support that we are able to get at this particular time.
All right. Now, I know that time is upon us, but I do have another question here from our live feed.
Yes.
The question of the cruise liners coming home. Let me just read the whole thing. Some of the cruise liners are currently incurring months of accommodation and food expenses for stranded Grenadian cruise ship workers. Is it in the government's plan to house these repatriated workers in a supervised facility for 14 days observation? If yes, has the government made any budget for funds to be allocated to the cost of quarantining the cruise ship workers?
Well, don't forget, we have passed already at the Parliament over $50 million of support for COVID-19 activities. So if we have to spend resources on any area, as you just mentioned, it will come from that allocation. And if we have to do additional, then it means we go to Parliament again for any additional support, and that can be done within a couple of weeks. We don't have to take a long time to go to Parliament to do this. But the point is, you may not necessarily have to find a place. Take, for example, in the discussion taking place, if the government is able to verify that our citizens are returning home, and that's just discussed, as I mentioned, for every country in the region yesterday at the heads of government meeting. So we have to prove, they can't just say they're COVID-free and they were quarantined. They have to prove it. And when they come, for example, if the ship comes in here to drop off at the 80-odd of our citizens back home, they would have to be tested before they leave the ship. I mean, that's the kind of agreement that one is expected to come to. And if they test negative, then of course, and of course all the temperature checks and everything is done, then they would be quarantined, and in the individual homes. You don't have to find a special place for them because they are proven to be negative. They would have to be quarantined. In other words, they cannot be allowed to walk the streets, really, because you never know. We take no chances at all. So and we have to have the management structure and in place to be able to ensure that they do in fact quarantine themselves. And we have had problems in that area in recent times where people are supposed to be home went wrong in the communities. But we have of course strengthened the arrangement in that area, and we expect that we'll be able to manage it. But one of the things I must point, Grenada, in a sense, while being unlucky, is also lucky. Unlucky that we didn't have a lot of more of our workers getting the kind of salaries and benefits from being on cruise as a work on cruise. But at the same time, fortunate in the sense that because of this smaller number relative to countries like St. Vincent and other countries in the Caribbean, Jamaica and so on, who have over 1,000 persons in some cases working on cruise ships. So you could imagine a small country is going to have 1,000 of our citizens coming back that we have to quarantine and support at this particular. You're talking about the budget of the country to do so. So the problem we have is less than many other countries in the Caribbean experiencing on this particular issue.
Okay. Now, the Minister for Tourism would have announced that the rough cost of quarantining an individual is about $9,500. Can you validate that?
It's based on what they're saying. That is in discussion with the cruise industry. As I said, based on if they were able to verify before they come in, we may not necessarily have to find that money if we don't have to place them in a special facility and rent place and find food and so on. If they go to their homes, then they're responsible for themselves. And these are people who financially who would have to be paid off appropriately for the time they're off their jobs. And in most cases, they make reasonable salaries, so we won't have to finance them. If we're going to put them, rent a place for them and quarantine them in a government facility, then of course clearly we'd have to find the resources. And that is where the discussion between the cruise ship and of course the governments in the region were ongoing. But at this point in time, it looks more likely that verification of the non-COVID status is going to be the key factor, and verifying that when they arrive here would be the key. If that is the case, then we won't have to find facilities. And maybe if most are negative and maybe a few are positive, you can't leave them in the ship. Mm-hmm. We'll have to quarantine them, and that will cost us. And of course, we hope if that is the case, if we have any such case, that will be a very small number. And we have been able to handle a very small number of infected persons at this particular time in a pretty successful way.
Okay. Another question posed: for persons that traveled abroad just prior to this pandemic and would be approaching their given visa stay, what measures are in place for these persons? And this individual is saying, my passport would expire before the month's end, and that's her only form of ID. So what measures are in place to deal with our people in the diaspora who are faced with this situation?
Well, if for example, the passport will expire before the border is open, there are arrangements. The embassies abroad do have the facility to provide temporary permits to travel to back home to your individual countries, and that is done even in non-COVID period where special arrangements are made. So that's not going to be a major issue for them. And I assume if one has a visa into a country that legitimately gave them a certain time to be there, and because of COVID-19, they were not able to leave at the time, I don't see the country issuing that visa victimizing the person for the inability to travel because of force majeure or something like this, where you have a disaster like COVID-19. It's not the responsibility of the individual, so I don't see them being victimized for that.
Okay. Now, I have one final question to ask on revenue, but before I do that, because that would be closing off the session, I would like to give you an opportunity to speak to your constituents, because not only are you here in your capacity as Prime Minister, but also as parliamentary representative and political leader. So
yes, as I said before, the constituents of Northwest St. George's have given me that support since 1984. You're looking at 36 years as their parliamentary representative and continue to give me. And the high 80s in percentage of support, so the massive show of support and confidence is highly appreciated by myself. And I pain for them at this because they're going through a lot. As you know, the problem in Molyneux with the road, the destruction of that road, and they have to pass through Morris and causing some level of discomfort to the people of Morris, where buses, trucks, and so on have to be passing through these narrow roads, and really inconveniencing the people of Morris and inconveniencing the busmen and the passengers themselves. And the people at certain sections of Molyneux who have their shops are now not able to have the level of business that they normally have. So they've been marginalized a lot. And so that was a major problem And then you had the problem of the Perseverance dump. There were the fire and the smoke that is causing a lot of health issues in the communities, affecting Brazan, McMorris, Happy Hill, Concord. All the areas up there are being affected by what is taking place. So many things are happening to the people that in Northwest and Lower St. John's in just one time of the year. The whole western side has to travel down to St. George's. Therefore, the Molyneux problem of the road affects all of them, and the busmen and so on are suffering also. And then come COVID-19. So you can imagine to get 3 hits one time and for one section of the country, it's quite enormous. So I feel the pain of the people, and I just want to say that my heart goes out to all of them in this very difficult time. But as it is said that there always a silver lining, and with God's help and with God's grace and the prayers of a lot of people, we're pretty sure that we'll get over this. I'm confident that we've been down before as a country, we've been down before as an area, and I'm pretty sure with the united effort of the people of the country and the people of the community that we'll get past that with flying colors.
Okay, and we know that the constituency office has been issuing hampers to those who are most needy in your constituency. I know because I assisted in delivering in my area. Would you encourage people who are disadvantaged? Because there was a question on the live video, and I think this applies to all constituencies who are disadvantaged but also not under the seed program, to contact their respective constituency offices.
Yes, that's obviously so. This COVID-19 has made a number of people never ask for one help from anybody. The COVID-19 has put people in a position that they have to ask for help. I'm sure you've seen it in the United States, where long lines of people were going to food banks, and some of them clearly feel a sense of hurt, having for the first time in their entire life to ask for help. And so COVID-19 has really created a situation that has marginalized people that have never found themselves in that kind of position before to help. So we're asking those persons, and let me make it clear, the issue of support and providing some help for families, for buying basic stuff and supporting basic things should never be based on political affiliation. I want to make it clear. If anybody has any idea, any part of the country, because my constituency know that is my policy, period, all over the years. When I am elected, I see my election as a service for those who voted for me and those who didn't. In any event, you're not absolutely sure all who voted for you and all who did not vote for you. So you would be rather foolish politically to victimize anybody on the perception that they didn't vote for you. And that is the power of representing anybody. So clearly that cannot be the philosophy. So I wonder, some people have heard a little bit of propaganda or wild accusations being made about some people getting food based on party affiliation. That is the most backward and stupid way for any politician to operate. And if any politician does that, will face the consequences of the vote that the people are on the following election. So that is not our philosophy. That cannot be the philosophy of the New National Party. If it was, we would never be victorious in any election, as we have been consistently so. So I just say to people, you have a need. Doesn't matter who you like and who you don't like politically or otherwise, or religiously. No religion, no special religion is given any favor in this business. The need is the fundamental basis for any support.
Absolutely. Now, I feel like it's absolutely necessary for me to make this statement because it's something that has come, that has become a problem in recent months. Now, I have contacted or tried to on several occasions to get in touch with the NIS to get an interview. However, due to the uproar in recent times of them appearing on a political platform to provide information to the nation's people, they have been a bit skeptical in where they share information in fear of backlash. with that being said, there are a lot of people seeking information on the unemployment benefit that NIS would have announced. Are you able to shed any light on this? Because we have construction workers who have been paying NIS. We have workers in the different novelty stores in St. George and other parishes.
Any worker, from what I know, because discussions were held between the NIS, although it's their funds, and of course, and they have the responsibility to help the persons who are members who have been contributing to the NIS. Remember, the money in the NIS is the workers' money. It's accepted. And therefore, NIS is doing what it's fundamentally, morally responsible to help. So as long as they are members and contributors to the NIS, and of course they have been working and they are now unemployed, and that package would be made available for them, and it's a package, and maximum is 6 months of support, because the NIS can't support permanently workers out there, because they already have in a hole as far as the revenue versus expenditure is concerned. So there's no way they could give unlimited period of support to workers in general in the country, and we do not expect it will be unlimited. In fact, many workers should be back to work in 3-4 months maximum, and some would probably in the hotel sector might be longer than that, but I don't expect that. Based on what we've seen so far, we expect to see some relief coming not long from now.
Okay. And finally, Prime Minister, we believe, a lot of us Grenadians believe that Grenada can bounce back, and we will bounce back, because you have taken us through it. We have had Ivan, we have had what I refer to as the Great Depression of 2013, and we are confident that your government can lead us through this economic situation successfully. So with that being said, at this time, government is doing all that they can do to ensure that we keep the economy afloat and that we meet the financial needs of all of the people of Grenada. What call, as Prime Minister, do you want to give to the nation, in your wisdom, on what they can do to help for this situation to run smoothly?
Well, as I said at the beginning of this program, no one is prepared for this present situation, and therefore the success of our intervention and bringing back our country where it was to be would depend on the government of the day and of course our leadership, but it depends on every citizen and everyone who is able to help. So we expect those who are in a better position to make contribution, and we're noticing a number of persons, business persons, and ordinary citizens have in fact coming forward and offering support, and in fact providing support to vulnerable persons in the society who need support and help in this particular. So I call on them to continue doing it, and call on everyone to unite. This is a time not for partisan political behavior patterns. This is a time for an absolute unity to bring our country back in a time where all of our people are in fact having to face the consequences of something that none of us were prepared for.
Absolutely. Well, we are definitely out of time, but we thank you so much, Prime Minister, for taking the time to speak with us, to answer the questions that the general public would have. And as time goes by, we hope to speak again as more questions arise.
No problem, and I look forward and keep doing the excellent job that you're doing.
All right. Thank you. Have a wonderful day and stay safe.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. All right, guys, and there you had it, our Honorable Prime Minister, answering some of the questions that we may have as it relates to our economy, revenue collection, and, of course, the effects of COVID-19. I do see some questions in the live video that we weren't able to get to. Some of them have already been answered. Some of them I'm hoping that as time goes by and the different ministers appear on our program, your questions can also be answered that way as well. Now, the takeaway from this is that we are working. We are working. Government is working. So we must all join with them and do our part. You know, we can't do this alone. We can't do this in isolation. We can't do this separately. We must all work together to ensure that we come out on top of this. Now, tomorrow I will be speaking from representatives from the IHS Dialysis Center. They will be making a plea and, of course, clarifying some statements that have been made as it relates to a letter that they would have sent to their patients. During this program, we would have received messages from individuals who are willing to contribute to the payment of a treatment or two treatments for a patient. And we hope to continue receiving this support because this is important. Government is doing what they can do. The Kidney Foundation is doing what they can do, but the patients need additional support. And that is where we as Grenadians here and in the dialysis private sector individuals need to come together and support our fellow Grenadians. So we will be taking contributions. We will be passing information on to IHS Dialysis Center so that they can be supported. All right? So let us all keep that in mind. Guys, we have run out of time, but of course, it is always a pleasure speaking with you. In whatever you do and whatever you say, be safe and be secure. I always want to be talking with you and never about you. Please do enjoy the remainder of your day.
Stay up to date with all that's happening with the new National Party, NNP. Send us a message via text or WhatsApp on 405-8683 with your name, email, and constituency. Stay in the know with NNP. Get updated.
Government and Grenlec collaborating to grant promised reduction in bills to Grenadians. We'll have details to this story and more in the National Report. With the details to the news for Tuesday, May 5th, 2020, I am Rakisha St. Louis. The Government of Grenada, through the Ministry of Energy and the COVID-19 Economic Support Secretariat, Ministry of Finance, in collaboration with the Grenada Electricity Services Limited, Grenlec, is pleased to announce that the promised reduction in electricity bills to consumers will be applied to bills issued from Monday, May 4th, 2020. In his national address on March 20th, 2020, Prime Minister Dr. The Right Honorable Keith Mitchell stated that there would be a 30% reduction in electricity bills for March, April and May as part of efforts to provide relief for Grenadians in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. The time required for negotiating the arrangement and the billing cycle schedule mandated that the earliest start be May, and hence consumers will realize the reduction in their bills issued in May, June and July. Collectively, over $10 million is expected to be contributed towards this initiative, with government providing in excess of $7 million over the 3 months and Grenlec contributing $1 million every month for a total of $3 million. Government will make its contribution to the reduction through payments to Grenlec. Neither government nor Grenlec will benefit from the discount, while government electricity bills will also show the reduction. This is only to facilitate on-time billing. Government will not actually benefit from the reduction. Consumers can expect to see 2 credits on their bills over the next 3 months, one from government and the other from Grenlec, which when combined will total 30% of the fuel and non-fuel amounts. Both government and Grenlec have underscored the importance of the initiative. The Prime Minister said, and I quote, "The impact of the COVID-19 pandemic has created very real challenges for the population. Through the reduction in electricity bills and the many other measures in the government stimulus package, we intend to provide much-needed relief for Grenadians, while at the same time stimulate the local economy. Although government is the architect of these initiatives, it is heartening to have the support of stakeholders, and we welcome Grenlec's decision to contribute to the effort." Unquote. Energy Minister Honorable Gregory Bowen, who coordinated the measure, expressed his satisfaction with the level of participation of all concerned. He said, and I quote, "The Ministry of Finance, CES and Grenlec were all on the same path and clearly wanted to achieve the common goal." Unquote. For clarity, consumers will be responsible for paying the total due amount on the bills because this is the discounted figure. Electricity customers will see the COVID-19 relief discount clearly displayed as a prepayment on the electricity bills issued in May, June, and July. Electricity bills are expected to be available from this week. Continuing with the news, Minister for Tourism and Civil Aviation Dr. Clarice Modeste Kerwin says government is committed to repatriating Grenadians employed on cruise ships who are affected by the spread of COVID-19 globally. In an exclusive interview with GIS on Tuesday, Minister Modeste Kerwin said government has received requests from 2 cruise ships, Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines and Disney, to bring Grenadians home. Over 200 Grenadians are employed on cruise ships, but so far Grenada expects over 80 to return home.
We have made arrangements for 88 persons at this time. We hope that all of them are well, but we also have to be prepared in the event that 1 or 2 of them are not well. We have to ensure that we test everybody. We have to ensure that they get regular checks from the nurses, the physicians, temperature checks, etc. So there is a protocol in place that must be followed, and when people just come into the region and say in 3-4 days' time we're dropping off people as though they don't matter, it's a bit disturbing. So at this time we're still, we have some tentative dates. We are waiting on the cruise lines to give us something more exact before we say a date, but we have some tentative dates from at least 2 cruise lines at this time. We have a proposal from a 3rd one without a date. And then thirdly, we also have some hearsay situations.
The minister says the cruise lines have been on the water since the start of the spread of the virus, with workers from several Caribbean countries. She addressed cruise lines that are on the water, but no request has been made.
According to our policy, persons, the cruise lines are expected to do certain things. Let us know the status of health of the persons on board, do some testing, and we must have that conversation because we have to prepare. Someone who is apparently well is different to somebody who is obviously sick. And so the preparation is different. But also, we have a policy which has been mandated by the Ministry of Health that whoever comes in at this time must be quarantined. And this quarantine is going to be a supervised quarantine. Means that we have to have a location that is designated for that. It's not home quarantine or self-quarantine. We're not going there because our experience with that has not been very successful.
Quarantine stations and locations have been identified by the Ministry of Health, Government and SGU to house these Grenadians on their return. Minister Kerwin explained that they will be tested upon arrival to confirm their health status.
We expect them to do a test on the cruise ship before they leave. They leave the ship and come maybe about 24 hours, 48 hours before. We expect the temperatures to be taken periodically and that reported to us. But we will be doing everything here. And the thing is that everybody, you notice I beg you for my 6 feet. I think really and truly in Grenada we all have to treat each other as though each other had it, because this This thing doesn't respect anybody. And saying, well, this is my friend, or this is the minister, so it's not okay. Each one of us have to do what they have to do.
One man is assisting police with investigations into the vandalism of a teller machine at the Church Street branch of the Grenada Cooperative Bank. Head of the RGPF Community Relations Department, Superintendent Vanny Kerwin, says the vandalism is said to have occurred just after midnight on Monday into the early hours of Tuesday. The RGPF, he says, was promptly notified when the discovery was made.
Well, unfortunately, sometime this morning, we received a report at the Criminal Investigations Department of a damaged teller machine at the Cooperative Bank on Church Street. We were able to review the footage out of the machine, and we were able to see what has transpired. Currently, there is somebody in custody assisting us with our investigations. From the footages that we have seen and physically looking at the machine, it is severely damaged. It will require some doing to get it back operational again. It's unfortunate at time as now when we are on lockdown and when the country is going through what we're going through, we have to be dealing with that kind of vandalism and that kind of unnecessary crime. But fortunate for us, we were assisted in this process and somebody is in custody, and hopefully by the end of the day, we should be able to charge somebody for that damage.
He says the individual was not successful in retrieving cash from the teller machine.
For my information, no cash was dispensed from the machine, and so that's a good side of it. All of the cash are still in the machine, and just the damage that was done. This happened last night, about 12:30 last night into this morning. We have not seen much of that, and particularly to do with ATM machines. We have not had these issues before. I do not want to say that the onset of COVID brought on some new challenges for us, but this is what it is. We have not seen that. It's unfortunate. At a time when people need to withdraw monies, at a time when monies are important now so people can get essential items. Now, this is one of the ATMs that are now out of commission, and so this is going to impede the access to money as we go forward until it can be repaired.
This is the National Report. We'll have more news after the break.
Distance makes the difference. Keeping the nation positive, we can do this together by uniting apart, reaching out to you at home and in the diaspora every Wednesday night from 8 to 10 right here on GIS. Join me. If we hold on together, our dreams will never die. Be a part of flattening the fare curve and replacing it with hope and positivity, sharing the stories and the expectation of a brighter tomorrow. We can beat this virus. Remember, we are in this together. Distance makes the difference. DMD, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. here on GIS. Sharing is caring.
Welcome back. Spice Mass Corporation SMC has made the decision following developing concerns of the spread of the COVID-19 threat that has raised discussions with health officials and Spice Mass stakeholders to cancel Spice Mass 2020. The corporation released a statement on Tuesday assuring the general public that health and safety of the population is of paramount importance as Grenada and the rest of the world continues to curb the spread of the virus. Spice Mass Corporation is fully cognizant of the impact of this decision on our many stakeholders, but we are confident that it is indeed the right decision to safeguard public health and safety. This gives Spice Mass the opportunity to execute a bigger event for 2021. While the cancellation of the Spice Mass was a difficult decision to pass, the corporation appeals to their stakeholders and supporters to adhere to the guidelines that has been put in place for normalcy to occur as soon as possible. The Board of Directors is expected to meet on Thursday for further deliberation. More updates will be given via the Government Information Service. Finally, in the news, the Ministry of Tourism on Tuesday held part 2 of its show of appreciation to frontline workers. 200 staff on the morning shift at the General Hospital were treated to lunch by the minister and her team. Recently, the Tourism Ministry and the Grenada Tourism Authority staged a salute by sound to show appreciation to every frontline worker in Grenada's fight against the novel coronavirus. Tourism Minister Dr. Clarice Modest Kerwin said hospital workers are the first in a series of appreciation initiatives to be organized. Grenadians, she said, cannot overemphasize how grateful they are to health workers during this global pandemic.
This is an initial thing. We may have to do it once again or another time again, because I believe that COVID is going to be with us for a while. That is the reality. And therefore, we must continue the expressions of appreciation. I want to thank all the frontline workers. And today, we are especially recognizing those in the healthcare system. Thanks on behalf of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique for what you're doing. Be strong, be resilient, be committed, be caring, and do what you do as best you can.
Director of Hospital Services, Dr. Carol McIntosh, said the move to provide lunch goes a long way to keep up the spirit and morale of the workers during this period.
We do recognize that even though there's the lockdown and we're saying that people are at home, Ministry of Health, all of the hospital services, of course, Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique cannot be at home. We have to be out working to help those who stay at home be safe and stay healthy. So we say thank you. I want to say a special thank you to Sister Joanna Humphrey, my Deputy Director, because she made it a point to make sure that everybody who's working now during the day is aware of the lunches and are coming out, and to bring in the lunches at a timely basis. So again, thank you. Thank you very much for all of this that you're doing for us. We truly appreciate each and everything.
That story just ended the national report for today, Tuesday, May 5th. Let's recap the top story. Government and Grenlec collaborating to grant promised reduction in bills to Grenadians. On behalf of the entire news team here at the Government Information Service, I am Rakisha St. Louis saying thank you for joining us. Until next time.
Stay up to date with all that's happening with the new National Party, NNP. Send us a message via text or WhatsApp on 405-8683 with your name, email, and constituency. Stay in the know with NNP. Get updated.